Welcome back to another podcast of Prepper Talk Radio. We've got Paris, Scott, and Shane in the house. We're live on all of our platforms. So if you're listening to this later, you missed our opportunity to be live and comment and make comments. So join us. We're usually going live Wednesdays about 6 o'clock Mountain Time. So that's 5 o'clock Pacific, and then it's 7 o'clock Eastern and 6 o'clock Central Time, right? So if you're interested in being on our live show, whether it's on
7
Facebook
Central,
or
8 o'clock Eastern.
8 o'clock Eastern,
Or the 6 p.m. Yeah,
sorry,
close enough.
I need to go back and do my time zones. So if you're interested in being live, whether it's on YouTube or on Facebook, that's when we do it on Wednesdays. We appreciate you guys coming in and listening to this episode. Today we're going to talk about this. By the time you're listening to this, it'll probably be the first few days of January will have passed. And at least on the podcast, those that are listening on the podcast, that's when we're going to drop it. But those that are live with us tonight, it's the last couple of days of December 2022. And today we're going to talk about goal setting and prepper goals for 2023. Before we jump into that, though, let's make sure we hit the like and subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Let's make sure that we're sharing this as much as possible so we can get to 1,000 subscribers so that we can have our contest. We're having a contest again, just as a reminder, the Jase medical case. The Jase case is a case of antibiotics. There's 5 different antibiotics they give to the average person. Most people who have an allergy or something like that, they'll double up on some. They'll tailor it specifically to your situation, your scenario. But you'll want to get a free Jase case by entering our contest, and that's having a subscription to our YouTube channel, being in our Facebook group, and being awesome. Other than that, those are really the only other requirements. The next thing we have also is a 5-ounce silver bar that we're giving away. So make sure that between a Jase case and a 5-ounce silver bar, you're getting into our Facebook group and YouTube channel and spread the word. So as soon as we hit 1,000, we're at 752, I think, subscribers on YouTube last I checked. So
753.
753, nice. We're moving on up. So super excited about that. But let's jump into our 2023 goals. Whenever I do goal setting, I sit my family down. In fact, we did this on Monday this last week. We sat down on Monday and we reviewed our goals for 2022. We went back and looked at the list that we created and we said, okay, what did you do? What did you say you wanted to do as a goal in 2022? And how well did you do it? And how far did you get? What percentage of it did you complete? And we break things down in my family. We break it down into 4 main categories. We added a 5th one this last year. But the main categories for us are, what are your physical goals, like exercising, things of that nature? What are your financial goals, like especially for those, that of our kids that have jobs? What do you want to do for investments and savings, and what are some things you want to buy? Then we talk about intellectual goals, like what books do you want to read, what courses do you want to take, what things do you want to learn? And then we have spiritual goals, which are, what are the different things you want to do spiritually? And then we have emotionally, some other things we just added recently. Or social goals. What are some social goals that you want to have? To be able to make more friends, to have more, do more out in the community. What are some goals socially that you want to have throughout the year? And so we broke that down into those 5 areas, and that's going to be different maybe for your family than ours, but that's what we do in our family is those are like the main macro level categories. And then we go into the specifics of those. And I know Shane and I and Scott all do and use a procedure called SMART goals. So we'll be talking more about that as the podcast goes on. But I think that it's really important when you set a goal to then create a plan towards the accomplishment of that goal. What do you guys think?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Ditto.
So for those who aren't familiar with SMART goals, it means specific, measurable, attainable, and then what's R?
Realistic or
relevant.
Relevant.
And then time specific. T is for time. So
time bound.
Yeah. And I think that's where most of us fail, is the T part.
We
don't in 2023 I'm going to do this. Well, by when?
Yeah.
Right. I know a lot of runners and they're all like, oh yeah, I'm going to do 30, 5Ks. Like, you're going to do more than what? You're going to average like 3 a month. Yeah. Like that's 3 Saturdays of your life each month gone. Like, yeah. I'm like, okay. When are these? Have you scheduled them? They're like, well, no. I'll just sign up for them as we go. I'm like, you can sign up for them way in advance, right? So get like time bound, sign up for them. If they're all available now, sign up for all of them now. Get them on your calendar now, right? Otherwise, things are going to come up and it's going to get in your way. That's why I haven't got my ham radio license.
Yeah.
That's exactly why I have. And now I'm like, I'm not going to get it.
So you can even break that. You can even break that down a little further. Let's say that you have a goal. I mean, a standard goal at the beginning of every year is to burn off all the calories we ate during Christmas. So let's say you have a goal to lose 10 pounds. So that's by the end of the year. So that's fine. You hit the timetable by December 31st. I want to have lost 10 pounds. That's a specific goal. It's measurable. It's attainable. It's realistic, and it's a time frame. However, you might say, well, by February 13th or Valentine's Day, I want to lose the first 2 pounds. So that you can break it down even further so that you're on track, so that by the time December 31st but it could be, you could hit Thanksgiving and you're like, oh crap, I need to lose 10 pounds this month because I didn't do any of it. So that's not realistic. That part of being realistic is setting those benchmarks along the way as well. And that kind of breaks down the time frame too a little bit more and helps out, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's the funny thing is like we can get stuck on setting the right goals, right? We can easily get stuck in the busyness of life. But if we break it down, it's a lot more achievable.
Yeah.
You don't go to the gym on day one and be like, I'm going to have the body of Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime by the end of the year, and I've never worked out before, right? It's not achievable. And what's the relevance for you in your life, right? So you got to, yes, it's specific, but how am I going to get there? That's the achievable part. Is this goal a realistic goal? Like Utah Mike just threw up the goal. Number one goal is more water storage, right? Large tank buried in the yard, not a pool like my wife wants. Okay.
That's my wife. That's what my wife keeps saying too. Hot tub or pool? There's more water storage for you.
That you have to then completely treat, in 5 different ways. But it's like, it's smart. It's specific, right? More water storage, large tank buried in the yard. The key on this is, okay, where is it going to be? I would also attach to that, how am I going to get the water out of it? How am I going to fill it? Breaking down all those parts and then building up to that. Okay, I need to go buy these pipes by then. I've got to buy this tank system by then. I'm going to, dig the hole and have it prepped by this time. If you break it all down and you actually map it out, just like in one of our other episodes, we talked about standard operating procedures. You've got to know what you're going to do throughout the process. And if you have that all measured out, it becomes very achievable.
Yep. And knowing how big of a tank you want, like more water storage, what does that mean? More than like 10 gallons, 20 gallons, 100 gallons, 500 gallons. Like that's something that's also really important to throw in there. Like,
yeah.
And thanks for sharing that example, Mike, because that's fantastic. That's a lot of times when we do goals, we'll just throw out an idea and forget that we need to be even more, like break it down to super specific and then make it so measurable that you can, like Scott was saying, you can track it all along the process, all along the way.
I think
be prepared for things that are going to change. Like I had a goal that I wanted to be able to go 10 to 15 miles every day, and work was helping me get to that. And then they switched me to a different team at work where I'm lucky to get 4 miles. And I'm like, man, how am I going to fit the rest of it in? So I've got to change my strategy every day for getting those miles in. So now I'm like, treadmill. Oh boy, here we go. So you have to be adaptable too.
Yeah, what I was going to say is don't be afraid to change your goals midstream. There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion, right? Especially if you see, man, I'm not making progress at this, or I don't have the motivation, or I've lost motivation, or priorities have changed. I'm going to drop this goal. I'm going to change it. There's no reason. I think a lot of people will set goals at the beginning of the year and say, man, I can't do that. I'm scratching it. Or it just like the phenomenon of getting a gym membership at the first of the year, and by the end of January, you've already broken that goal, right? Change it, tweak it.
I am so not excited.
Go hiking, get on your bike. Change it, switch it up.
I'm so not excited for the next 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
The next 3 weeks, going to the gym, like right now, going to the gym sucks because all the kids are out of school.
Yeah, it's
So I'm near 3 different high schools where I live, and they're all at my freaking gym, all hours of the day, and they're not working out per se as much as they're flirting on each piece of equipment, so you can't get to it, right? So I've had to change when I go to the gym. I have to go earlier, or later didn't work. I thought I could go later, but the next few weeks after this, kids are going to be back in school, which is great. But then every Tom, Dick, and Harry, Mary Sue, and Betty are all going to show up at the gym, including everybody. And it's going to be even harder to get in what I need to get in, because here's my goal. I have a goal. I had a weight goal. It's not a weight goal anymore. My goal is to be able to go 20 miles in a day straight. And that part of that, to know that I'm doing well on that, is I have to improve my flexibility so I can kick and stretch and kick, right?
You've got a few years for that, though, Scott. You've got a few years.
I've got some time, but I'm like, this year, my number one focus is my fitness. My number 2 focus is my financial resilience, because I haven't been as financially resilient as I'd like to be. Right. So I'm actually adding another income stream this year. That is one of my big things, and I'm doing things every day for that, just like I'm doing things every day for my physical fitness. So I have on my watch, it's also a heart rate monitor, it's a pedometer, and it tells me how many steps I've made. And I can look at my app on my phone, and it tells me the distance I've actually gone, or how many flights of stairs I've gone up and down. And so I can have little attainable goals every day. I'm like, okay, did I hit my steps? Oh shoot, I didn't. I need to make sure I go do that, or increase that for tomorrow, or over the next few days to catch up, or what can I do as an activity or reward that's going to challenge me to do better on that. Right. But the other thing is like, I wanted to say this a while ago, is like, these goals, if they're not written down, it's a pipe dream.
Yeah.
Like, if you do not write your goals down and put them somewhere you're going to see them every day, they're not really goals.
Exactly.
Yep. And the other thing too is, if you have too many goals, it's not appropriate. That's not going to work, because you're going to be spread too thin. You're not going to have goals. That's why I try to keep it to 4 or 5 macro level areas, and then maybe 1 to 3 goals within each of those areas. And that's pretty strong. And then let's say that one of your goals is to do, go get a particular, preparedness item. And let's say you buy it by June. Well, you can cross it off your list as completed, but you still got 6 months of the year that you could maybe add another goal to that. And that could be if you haven't got a second or third goal in January, when you cross off that one goal that you made, now you got another opportunity for the next 6 months to create a new goal. So I would say start off the year with 1 to 2, maybe 3 goals in each of those categories, or however you want to divide it up. But then once you cross those off, then add new goals to it. Don't put 20 goals on your list today, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I got all these things to do. And because you get overwhelmed, and psychologically being overwhelmed is not helpful to the accomplishment of your goals.
Yeah. As part of my business practice is what we do in our company is, setting goals. It happens every month, and, not just every year, but, we look back at the previous year, see what we accomplished, and pattern our goals based on business goals based on what we accomplished the previous year. But we also set one particular, we call a stretch goal, one that we can say, okay, you know what, if everything works out, if I'm saying my prayers, I get blessed, this is what I feel I can attain by the end of the year. And it may be, like you say, maybe more preps. It may be, something more spectacular. I'm going to climb Everest this year, right? My stretch goal or something like that, that's not mine, but Kings Peak is on my list. But as a stretch goal, and maybe, like you say, Paris, in each of the macro categories that you have, those 4 categories, maybe have a stretch goal in every single one of them, and this is what I feel is really attainable. But a stretch goal, if I'm really blessed, that I can reach that, stretch a little further and work a little harder, make it like in work, maybe an extra call every single day just to hit that goal.
Well, I think, Jordan Peterson actually, I wanted to beat Paris to this one, but he actually has the 12 rules, right, to life. But he also has the 5 things you need to do every day. One of those things is you need to make your bed every day. And the reason that's there is because it sets off a victory for you every day. The smaller the win, the more consistent it is part of your goal, the easier it is for you to accomplish that every day, the more likely you are to actually do it and finish that task. Right. That's why, like, if you guys heard of the 75 hard,
Mm-mm.
Is
like,
it alcohol?
no, it's 75 hard.
Sorry.
Like, it's a program. It's like a 75-day challenge. You got to do like 2 workouts a day for 75 days.
Oh, yeah.
Like, one has to be outside. You've got like so many minutes in the sun. You've got like all these different rules you've got to hit for 75 days. And it is extremely hard. Less than 1% of people who start it actually can do it. Right. And the guy who created, I think it took him 3 times to actually make it through 75 days. So it's interesting because going back to Jordan Peterson, it's like, do the things that you can do first.
Mhm.
Right. And then focus on the big things, like make a couple victories first thing in the morning. And that's going to do so many good things for your mindset, for your outlook, and then add on the bigger challenges and knock those out of the way first. He's like, the first thing you should do after you've knocked out these little goals, then go hit like your big, go to work for an hour and just smash through it, or 2 hours. I can't remember. I think he said 2 hours, and just smash through all the most important things you can and get those done first before you look at your emails, before you look at your voicemails. Knock those things out first, and it's going to change your trajectory. Right. So how do we do the same thing in prepping? Right? Because most of us get up, we get ready, we go to work. Then we come home, and if we have the energy, widen outdoors. Now Jordan Peterson. Scott is stealing all of Paris's material.
Right? Come on.
I know. But it's like, we go to work, we do all these other things, so we come home, and it's like, okay, when are we going to do our prepping things? Right? For me, it makes the most sense to set time aside on my day off. Not to focus on something I have to do every day, but to focus on, okay, every Wednesday morning, I've got this much time I'm going to devote to that. And that's for me, right? That's my time. What is it going to look like in your schedule, in your life, with your family and your needs to set that time aside?
Yeah. For me, every morning is kind of the time that I take, Scott. Weekends, of course, as well. But I love to wake up in the morning, get ready, and then before I go down to my desk, before I get into work, and then I just get lost, I do something to just increase my preparedness, whether it is organization or whatever it might be in the morning, before I even sit down at my desk. So
can you give me an example?
Well, part of my morning ritual is obviously take a shower, whatever, get in whatever I need to do to clean up and organize the kitchen, throw down some push-ups, some sit-ups, whatever I need to kind of wake me up in the morning, walk out into my garage where I've got multiple things going on at once, whether it's I'm repairing something of my daughter broke or something, and just making a little progress on that item. Something like that, that says, okay. And then I can say, then I go down, sit at my desk, and then I make a list, and I revise my list of what I'm going to get done that day. And I have both work and personal family items, which all my prepping is included on my family list, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah, the personal list versus a work or professional list. So
I think that's brilliant.
Awesome.
Because it's not, maybe you're not like focused on emergency prep, but you're focused on self-reliance. You're fixing stuff. Maybe your daughter broke it, right?
Right.
And that's
One
something
little
anybody
item.
can do every day. Like, I need to get better at making sure I finish the work I'm working on in my house. There's a skit. I keep watching this guy. It's like Dude Dad or something like that, but he's got a couple more days contracting t-shirts that he has now, and he's selling those. They're probably selling like hotcakes, because like every dad can relate. It's like, oh, I was doing this project in my house, and while I was doing it, I thought, let's put in some can lights, and the ceiling holes are cut out, but there's no lights in them yet. And he's like, oh, it's going to get done. Just give me a couple more days. Right. So it's like, is it perpetually being put off, or is it perpetually working a little bit every day to get those things done? I think that's where I struggled the most, is getting those things done, like on my house, because I got bored with it. I got annoyed with it. I can look at that SMART analogy for your prep, for your goals. And I'm like, I don't have like a definitive deadline on it, because I've been so busy with work because of the busy season. For those of you who don't know, like right now I'm a delivery driver as my primary gig, but like I've got 3 other income streams. I'm trying to add a fourth so I can eliminate one. But it's like, do I have enough time in the day to do all these other things? I haven't. So I've put it on the back burner. So my time bound hasn't worked. My relevancy, I've put it off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Going backwards through smart, I've pretty much made myself into a piece of poop in accomplishing those goals. That's the poop that's hitting the fan right now in life because I need to get them back to time bound. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a problem in the future. Because if I don't get it done now, it's going to be a problem in the future.
Yeah, that's one of the things too. I mean, just to take back the Jordan Peterson material, and one of the things that he talks about,
everybody, Paris.
Yes, okay, fine.
He's an international treasure.
But White It Outdoors and me, we're gonna go and talk about Jordan Peterson maybe. Anyway, so he talks about all the little dragons, the little lizards, the little dragons in our life. The more we can clean them out as they come, the less likely they are to grow into this big, huge dragon that's going to be a huge bottleneck or a huge collapse. And so that's important to take care of those things ahead of time, up front, and not build something so that you're, if you, the more you put something off, the bigger and bigger the problem becomes. And so it's important to tackle problems. It may be uncomfortable. You may not like it, but tackle those problems up front and get them out of the way, especially if when you're talking about goal setting. Have goals that are, when you talk about realistic goals, one of the things, if you were to tell me, hey, I want to save $2 this next year. Come on, you can save more than $2. So having realistic goals is also basically what you think is possible and maybe a little bit beyond that. Like what Shane, you're talking about the stretch goals. Yeah, challenge yourself. Don't do something so easy that you're like, you really don't have a lot of character build in accomplishing it. I did that goal. Well, what was it? Well, I did one push-up. Come on, like that wasn't your goal.
Like, does it make my life easier in the future or harder? Does it make me a better person or a worse person? Like aligning all of your goals, like that's one of the things too. I can't remember where I heard this, but I was like, oh wow, that's really cool. Like putting things in alignment with your natural you, who you really are, your eternal you. Right?
Priority.
If your goals don't fit who you are and who you are trying to become, it's not going to be on your radar every day.
Yeah.
Right. It's not going to be something you're going to be really willing to work on.
Yeah, and for me, along the same lines, it's about priority. I usually wake up pretty early in the morning, and it's because I'm excited to get up. I'm excited to wake up because I do jump on what's most important to me very first thing. Yes, work has to be important because I got to pay the bills, right? That's what makes prepping possible, what makes life possible, unfortunately. But getting up and doing something that's important to me that I know, okay, this made me just a little more prepared today and I feel good. Okay, I'm down to my desk.
That's cool.
That's
something that gives you some of that, working out first and then do something that you love right off the bat. I think one of the big problems that a lot of people have, and I think psychologists have shown this is to be true, is that too many people, first thing they do when they wake up is they grab their phone and they start looking at all the messages, all the social media, all the Facebook posts, the likes, the dopamine rush, and all that stuff. And one of my goals this next year, one of the things I'd like to do is to reduce my time fretting about that kind of stuff and just really use social media. Obviously, with Prepper Talk Radio, we have to use social media with my financial self-reliance. I've got to use social media for my business related stuff, but a lot of the personal stuff, just, leave it alone because there's not a lot of real need for it unless there's something, really significant or worthwhile. But most of that stuff can be done away. And then I can focus in and have more time to focus in on important things that will actually bring value to my life and move me forward towards my goals and my life, what I want to do with my life. I think that's really important.
True. Like social media can suck you in. The worst is probably like Instagram reels and Facebook reels and TikTok, right? The video, like you can be swiping and then look at your clock and be like, oh crap, that I just lost 15 minutes.
Or an hour.
Like, right. That's one of the biggest problems.
Come on, Scott, more than 15 minutes. It's more like half an hour.
It's like crap. But like the other morning, and this is why I stopped looking in the mornings. The other morning I was actually I'd had TikTok on, I popped it open and I saw that I had a lot of comments. And so I started going through reading the comments. And then I checked my feed, stupidest idea, and all of a sudden it had been 40 minutes.
Wow.
And I was like, oh crap, I'm supposed to be somewhere in 10. I'm like, I'm not even dressed yet. So I'm like hustling to get ready. I get out of the door, I'm gone, and I get to work and I'm 12 minutes late. And my boss is like, dude, you're never late. What happened? You're always early. And I'm like, embarrassed. I'm telling it now to the world. I was embarrassed to tell him, yeah, I got stuck on social media. What?
Well, and it's about habits as well, right? I mean, I'll find myself sometimes, man, it's the end of the day. I'm tired. I don't want to do anything. I'm checking my feeds because I'm scrolling through the news. I like to know what's going on. And then a rabbit hole pops open and I look down and I'm like, man, I just wasted that time. And I feel guilty. Like you say, you're embarrassed. I'm embarrassed with that time. I could have been using that, much more wisely. And it's really about creating and building those habits properly and just breaking that chain, that bondage, right? of that. There's nothing wrong with being entertained, taking some time to be entertained and to let your mind relax and just go with the flow. But I think it's really got to be controlled and on purpose. It has to be done with purpose, right?
Everything has to be purposeful. Like Whited Outdoors, 0 social media, and still doesn't have enough time for what he wants or hopes to get done each day. That's the lesson, right? So what are we willing to give up or sacrifice to make sure we accomplish our goals, our prepping goals, our life goals? Like, you have to give something up. You have to sacrifice something to make those things work. Most of the time, it's going to be time.
Yeah.
You got to sacrifice a little bit of time, carve something out of your schedule. Oh, I'm going to cut out some TV time. Fantastic. Cut out your social media time. Fantastic. Right? I spend more time at the gym now than I have for the decade prior. And that's okay because that's time that I'm investing in myself. I also listen to scriptures while I'm there and different podcasts and sometimes the radio. But it's like, that's the me development time that I haven't had or I haven't given myself for a long time. It's giving me the results that I want. And so what have I really sacrificed? Honestly, nothing.
Yeah.
But at first I was sacrificing a lot. I'm like, man, 40 minutes at the gym. Oh my gosh. And now I'm like, oh, that's easy. Now I'm an hour at the gym. And because I found I can just shower and clean up and change there and then go straight to work. And it's like, I've invested that time in me. And now that I've moved to the earlier shift, I was working a little bit later. Now I'm working at 6 a.m. I'm like, oh man, this is even hard. It's harder. I've got to get to bed earlier, but I'm like, I'm not losing out at night. I'm not missing out by going to bed earlier. I feel like I'm actually gaining time.
I really like what you said, Scott, because you got to learn, if you want to have change, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And if you don't like what you're getting, you have to change what you're doing. And I, for years, would watch, I was probably Netflix best consumer, 5-6 years ago, or maybe even 8 or 9 years ago. I mean, back when they had DVDs, I was the 4-disc guy. Every week I'd get the 4 discs and I'd watch movies 2-3 hours. That's what 8 to 10 hours of movies every weekend. And I'm like, what? And then I would have 4 or 5 sitcoms that I would watch, and then I would game. I was a gamer with online gaming, and so I was like, how? And then all of a sudden I got hit by the ton of bricks. Like, what am I doing with my life? I was just wasting so much time. And so in the beginning, it felt like a sacrifice because I had all these new habits to create. But now the only time I'll watch, I hate watching TV shows because they suck you in for an hour and then they have like 30 episodes. So it's really 30-hour commitment. I'm like, nope. If I'm going to get sucked into anything, it's a movie and it's max 3 hours, So I know that I can get that done. And then next month I'll watch another movie or whatever. Or I'll watch it with my kids to have some family time. Like there's a show, a couple of times there's a show that comes out and my wife and I will watch it. And that's our time to kind of cuddle and be together. And so that's fine. But outside of that, I don't even have time. Like I do so much. I'm with Whited Outdoors. Like how can you get everything you need to get done if you're watching Netflix all the time or you're watching Hulu or whatever you're doing, or you're on social media for 50,000 hours a day. It's like, you can't get it all done. You don't have time. And part of one of my goals this next year, that's kind of outside of my 5 goals, my 5 macro level areas, is to really organize my time more effectively so that when I wake up in the morning, I plan my day ahead of time. So I know exactly what I'm going to do from the minute I wake up to the time I go to bed, and plan that out more effectively. Someone who's self-employed, I don't have a boss to tell me when to be in. I don't have a boss to tell me when I can leave. I don't have a boss to tell me when I can take breaks. I'm that guy. I'm my own boss, and I'm a bad boss because I don't tell myself what to do. I don't keep myself accountable. And so that's one of my goals, is to become a better boss of myself so that I can actually be more accountable to what I need to do and be more productive. And that's one of my big things that I want to do this next year, is really be more time sensitive and organize myself more effectively so I'm more productive.
That's that personal accountability thing that a lot of us lack, right?
Mm-hmm.
Honesty with ourselves to hold ourselves accountable. And it's funny because most of the reasons we're not accomplishing things are because we're letting excuses lead.
Yep.
Well, it's
better reasons why we're doing things.
Yeah, it's very mentally tiring. It's difficult. It's very easy to sit down and watch a show. I think it takes a lot of conditioning. I talk to a lot of people, well, a fair amount of people that, like you say, Paris, they just watch Netflix and then they watch their TV shows and, oh, did you catch this episode? Oh, you should really watch this. This is great. No, I'm not going to. And I think once you get past that, you see, like you said, Paris, how ridiculous it is and what a time suck and waste it is. But it is at times, man, it's a necessity. You got to unplug, but until you condition yourself, like I've been watching a lot of mountain climbing videos. It's what's always interested me, from, like I said, mentioned climbing Everest. That's just a lot of dedication. I mean, there is no wasted time. If you want to do something great like climbing Everest, I guarantee these guys don't even sit down and watch a TV show. They're constantly training. So if we want to accomplish something great like that, I guess it depends on what your goals are, what you really want to accomplish.
Yeah.
And how great that big that goal is. I mean, do I want to climb Everest? No, I really have no desire to risk my life that way, but I do want to do great things for myself and my family.
And you have to have that passion. I think that really keeps you going. And one of the things that I just realized is that if you set your mind to something, you can accomplish anything. And that's part of the problem with realizing that you can accomplish anything, is that you get distracted with everything. And so you have to focus in on, what are you going to do? What's going to be your one aim? I read a meme the other day and it had Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson on there. I don't know if it's his quote or not, but he was on the picture. And he said, you're not lazy. You're just distracted with too many things. Pick one thing and get laser focused in on it and accomplish it, and then move to the next one thing and get laser focused in on it, and then move to the next thing. And I thought, man, that is true. I'm not lazy. I do like to work. I'm a hard worker. I believe in having a good work ethic, but it's applying that to something that's positive and good. And I get lost in YouTube a lot, and I get lost in watching all these things. And it's one thing to learn and to watch and to listen, and then it's another thing to do. And I think that's some of the disconnect, is that I want to not just watch and listen and learn, but I want to start doing some of the things so that I can have that muscle memory, have that conditioning, and have the results that I'm looking for.
So that goes to Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek is an author and a speaker, and he's famous for his why, his book on why, understanding your why. That's, I think, as big as your goal, your why needs to be bigger. If you haven't identified your why, so let's go back to our goal sheet. When we're figuring out our SMART goals, we need to write our why underneath that. Yeah. This is like my aha moment of tonight. Thank you guys for this conversation. Like, why is this important to me? Like, my financial resilience goal, why is so that I can have more time with my kids, more time with my wife. My physically fitness, so that more time lasts longer. Like, I don't want to be in a wheelchair or a jazzy scooter in 20 years. I want to still be jogging around and running and jumping and climbing and hiking. And I want, when my grandkids are born, I want to be able to play with them on the floor.
Yeah.
Right now, it's like I get up after playing with my kids on the floor and I'm like, oh man, I'm sore. Well, most of that soreness is because I've got crap diet. That's part of my fitness plan, is improving my diet. I've been cutting things out like crazy and replacing them with healthier options. And it's like, that's removed some of my headaches. That's removed some of my daily aches and pains. the neuropathy I've had in my arms. Like, just improving my diet has fixed that. If I go all in, and if I can really get dialed into where I need to be for my body, my fitness, my longevity, like, dude, I could be around another 50 years, 60
awesome.
years, maybe. I don't know.
But do you want to be?
Damage that I can't. But like, I would like to be. I'd like to hit 100 years old.
Yeah.
Give me 80.
Like,
I'll take 80.
Twice, and I can stretch twice, and I can kick twice more.
The age of a tree. That's all I ask. Right.
Well, which tree?
Not a redwood. No, not a redwood or any of those.
Nah, I want to be the age of a redwood, man. Like,
yeah. But the like you say, I love that Simon Sinek why. That is the why is the bullseye of the target. That's what I picture it, right? And that's what drives me. And just like you said, Scott, you're absolutely right. It is, why am I doing all this? So that I can spend more time with the family. I can take care of the family. But I think also we have to avoid. I really try my best to avoid the lies that we've been told our entire life, right? I'm working so I can fund my 401k, so that I can fund my pension, so I can get my Social Security, so I can retire when I'm 65, right? No, I don't buy into any of that, right? You got to have that truth backing your why as well, right? So,
and the why is bigger than the money. That's what gets you through the money. Like, my wife's like, I just don't care about money. I said, I know you don't care about money, and I don't really necessarily care about money either. Especially the fiat currency that we have, but you care about what money can buy. You care about what money can bring. We can take time off because we can save up, and you don't have to work, so that we can go on vacations. We can create memories with the kids. Like, so we need to keep our budget. That's motivating for why, when you set a budget, to stick with the budget. Why? Well, because I want to go on a vacation. Well, get the whole family involved. And you need to save $300 a month, and you can, if you budget and you stay in the budget, you'll have the 300. But if you break the budget, you won't. Well, that if you get everybody on board, hey kids, we're going to cut back on these things because we're going to take this money, we're going to put it towards this vacation we're going to do, or we're going to put it towards this new car we're going to buy as a family. Whatever it is, get everybody on board, especially those that are in your spouse and your kids, if you're going to have a family goal. And if you're not going to have a family goal, if you have a business goal, have your business partners be involved with it. Like, I hope we get it. Maybe the last 5 or so minutes, maybe 10, we can talk about some of the goals we have as Prepper Talk Radio, and the things we've discussed, and we can share those with the people, and kind of maybe even have some folks, give us some feedback on those. But having accountability, having a goal, then creating a plan to the creation of that goal, and then finding someone you trust to review those goals with you, and they'll tell you whether or not you're slacking or whether you've far overshot your goal. Like, for example, if you guys say, hey, Paris, Scott, if you came to me and said, hey, Paris, I'm going to make $300,000 next year. I'm like, bro, I mean, that's way too much. Like, or if you say, man, I'm going to do we're going to make $1,000 in Prepper Talk Radio. No, we can make way more than that. You know what I mean? Like, what are your goals? And then have a friend that you trust that you can run those by, and they can give you the feedback to say, look, you're on track, or hey, you're way under where you should be, or you're way over where you should be, and get more realistic.
And I think it's been my experience that if I focus on the why, the other parts tend to fall in line. They tend to work out. Right. If I'm focusing on, man, I just got to make money, no, that's not the why. Making money is not the why. This is what I want to accomplish, and this is why I want to accomplish. And if I'm focused on that, the other things tend to fall in line.
Well, that just comes.
That's why we prep, right? Our why, is our families, our safety, our responsibilities are key and front in our minds. So, like earlier, having extra water. One of my goals is to get to some land where I've got at least a half acre, and it's not a giant hill, right? Where I've got to hike up and down just to get to my backyard, just to get to my garden. I want it to be able to set up water flow systems and more passive, food systems. I want to have a vineyard, right? I want to have not like traditional vineyard, but I want to have a small vineyard. I want to have some grapes growing. My kids love grapes, right? I want to have an orchard. I want to have I call these my passive preps. I want to have alpacas And so that means I'm going to need at least an acre someday, right? So I want to get myself to that situation, but I don't have to be all the way out of town where I'm the only one there. I want to be in a population of about, 3,000 to 5,000 people type of town, and get to know my neighbors and spend time there. Like that's my next phase of life goal. And so it's like, part of that is my prepping. Part of that's my income, right? Part of that's lifestyle choices, but we prep so that we can have a better quality of life now and through the crap. All right. And the crap isn't the apocalypse that everyone's like, oh, the apocalypse is coming, zombies. Oh, dude, we're in the crap every day. So it goes back to you've probably all heard something similar to this is pick your hard.
Mm-hmm.
Life is hard. Work is hard. Paying your bills is hard. Being in a relationship is hard. Being alone is hard. Not having bills, not having a job, that's also hard, right? Pick your hard. If it fits your goals, your why in life. Like my major why is I want to be able to stand before God at the end of after this lifetime is over and say I did the best I possibly could for my family and for you. Say that and know that I've served and that I've helped other people. Know that I've taught my children the right things, taught them truths, and that I took responsibility for the stewardships that he gave me, and that I didn't just squander them or bury them in the ground, but that I actually worked to improve our situation.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty close to that right now, right? I'm pretty close to being able to say, yeah, I'm doing everything I can. And that's what I'm trying to tweak. That's what our goals should be. Am I tweaking the right things to get me better aligned with my major life why? Right? My preps are 100% in line with that.
Yep.
I rotate my food storage yearly because we have to use it yearly. Is that also the right way to have your food storage? 100%. I agree with that statement. Yes. I hear some people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy a year's supply of food. I'm not going to touch it for 20 years. Why? Why did you buy it then?
Yeah.
That's not the point of it, right? It's stuff you should be like, oh, hey, we made extra money this year. Let's go buy that new car. Or let's go buy our essentials so that we're stocked up for another year. We don't have to worry about it. And then, oh, the next year is great. Cool. Now go buy the car. Right? Because now you're just rotating the stuff. It's funny because like prepping's expensive for a year. Once you get your nugget resolved, maybe it takes you 5 years, whatever. It's expensive for that time. But then after that, it's just normal daily life. You're not spending more than anybody else. I guarantee it, you're spending less.
Well, here's another aspect, another view that I was thinking is, kind of going back again to Mount Everest and climbing these 8,000 meter peaks. These individuals, and I was trying to get my head wrapped around it. Why do these guys risk their lives to climb, into the death zone, right? And some of these individuals, they will say, you know what, Everest is too easy. I got to do something harder. Like, are you kidding me? Are you freaking?
Wow.
So hard is relative, right? If it's not pushing them to their absolute limit, these guys climbing K2 versus Everest, Everest is easy compared to K2. And for them, Everest isn't worth it. I got to do something harder than that. So it's very relative to each of us what hard is. And I think as we do more hard, that hard becomes easy.
Agreed.
And the hard becomes enjoyable, and the hard becomes, this is what life's all about. And I think that's what a lot of these mountain climbers have learned. Life is about hard. It doesn't necessarily have to be about hard, risking your life climbing Everest, right, or K2. But and I totally agree. Life is about hard. Give me hard. I don't want easy. Easy is not worth it. It's not worth my time.
I think it's important to remember that. Actually, I forgot what I was going to say because I read this comment in the back where I was just asked you a question, and I was going to say something, and then I read this question.
It might come back to you. So this is a great question. So I said I want to live in a community of maybe 2,500 to 3,000, like a town, like further out. Right now, I'm on the Wasatch Front. There's I think 1.8 million people in all of Utah. Most of them are on the Wasatch Front. I'm completely surrounded. I live in huge population pockets. I don't want to be in this huge population pocket. Originally, I'm from the outskirts of Idaho Falls, Idaho. Like our little township had probably 12,000 people, and I loved it. But I'm not saying that I want to be reliant on that community. I want to be in a more prosperous community. I love the rural communities and the farming communities because guess what? They're more responsible and they're more aligned on God, family, and country than the people in my neighborhood, right? Even though I have a fantastic neighborhood currently, the challenge is where there is population, there can be problems. But the other thing is creating a stronger community helps eliminate those risks, right? That selfish person that's like, hey, I'm going to take everybody out and take their food. Well, after the second farmer, they're not going to make it any further because we've all heard the shots and we know what's going on and we can take them out. Right. And then we come together as a community to help those farmers' families that just got knocked out.
Yeah, there's strength in community, and then there's always going to be an opportunity for somebody to have, the mythological snake in their heart that's going to come and destroy. And that's, there's no way to be 100% prepared or ready for 100% of things. But if you've got an idea about, hey, you know what, there's an opportunity that somebody could just betray us. What is our contingency plan? What is the stat? Yeah, plan for someone betraying you. And if you plan for that, when it happens, it will still suck, but you'll have, at least it won't hit you completely blindsided. You'll have a little bit of preparedness for it and be ready for it.
The best example for that is Jesus Christ. He picked an apostle that he knew would betray him so that it could fulfill all righteousness.
Yeah.
Right? Betrayers, bad guys, pirates, snakes, whatever you want, the werewolf preppers that some people call them. There's people like that everywhere, and they're going to interfere with life no matter what. Mm-hmm. But living by myself in the middle of nowhere, as exciting as that sounds at times, just isn't practical for my family and my life situation. Would I like to get 100% off grid someday? Oh, yes. But would I still want to have a community and be able to go down to Main Street and get some ice cream with the kids and the grandkids and stuff? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think, I always say look to the past to prepare for the future. History has taught us that, remote communities fared far better than, of course, larger cities. We all know this, right? In times of war in particular. And the ideal place to live, and I think I learned this from Joel Scows in one of his book, Strategic Relocation, is to be about 7 miles away from a town, maybe of 10,000 population, something like that, Yeah. So I know, Scott, you're shooting for 2,000 to 3,000 population. From me, ideally, maybe 7 miles off of that, and that's kind of where my place is. I'm less than 7 miles off of a little bit larger community of about 3,000, individuals. My community, my bug out location is about 300 population, but within walking distance, there and back within a couple hours to a little bit larger community. So, I've got those kind of resources. But yeah, absolutely. I agree with Scott is, and I'm agreeing more and more every day. I think, Scott, when you and I would talk about this previously, I'm like, now I want to be in the middle of nowhere, nobody around. It's just safer that way. And it is. It really is, especially with, not knowing your neighbors, and not just not knowing your neighbors, is they're not unpredictable, especially, and they're most likely not going to be as prepared as you. And I know we're straying from the topic a little bit here, but having some of that isolation, but also community is incredibly important. It really is.
Oh yeah. There's more strength in those numbers than we realize. I look at the example of the Teton Dam that broke in Idaho, right? Nobody saw that coming except for maybe the engineers who screwed up and then they didn't bring it up, right? Nobody saw that dam failing. My family specifically was impacted by that. Aunts and uncles, great uncles and aunts, like I wasn't around yet, but they were all impacted by that. And what's interesting is the community came together, and I don't know if it was called FEMA back then, but they showed up and they're like, okay, here's what we need to do first. And everyone just kind of laughed and like, we did that. Oh, okay. Then now we need to do this. And everything that the government people came to say, here's what we need to do, had already been done because the community was already like-minded and preparing, and they'd had their plans, right? And they knew what they needed to do. And so because they lived that way, which goes to Shane's comment, look to the past to prepare for the future. Because they already were responsible individually and as a community, they were taking care of each other and setting up food locations and clean water facilities and bathroom facilities, because the entire communities were just wiped away
Mm-hmm.
in that flood.
Like that.
Right. And so I would rather have a community like that than not, you know. And when I look at my goals and when I look at my ambitions, I want to have like-minded people around me as much as possible. And I find I'm more suited. I'm not suited to be the urban guy. I am more suited to be the outskirts of suburbs / the first 7 miles of country. As much as I want to be 100% off grid, away from everybody, I would probably drive my entire family insane, because I would go insane, because being alone that much as I enjoy my presence, I think I would get sick of me if it was just
awesome. That's legit.
You know, I've got friends in Alaska that live by themselves alone, and they're, you know, 9 months out of the year, they don't see anybody else, but they have radios and they communicate through the telephone and internet. But I'm like, man, if that could turned off, how, like, would you go stir crazy?
Takes a unique individual, no doubt.
Yeah. It's a different type of toughness. So again, pick your hard. I think Backroads is right. Like, for him, like, he's got to do what he wants to do, because that makes the most sense for him. Right. My wife doesn't want to be completely off grid, just like Mike Lamb just said. He wants to be off grid, but his wife doesn't want to be off grid. My wife doesn't want to be 100% off grid. She likes having a Walmart within 10 minutes. I, on the other hand, I'm like, when do you ever go to Walmart? Never. I'm the one that goes to Walmart. You have it shipped to your house. Like, when, like, I go to the grocery stores. I like, because it's easier for us to have me go do it without the kids than her to try to go do it with the kids.
Yeah.
And when I go shopping, I can get 30 things in 30 minutes, and it takes her an hour and a half, even without the kids, because then she'll go with her sister or her mom, who live 10 houses away, and they take 3 to 6 hours to get 30 things. And when she's with them, she can get them down to about an hour and a half. So it's like, again, what are my goals? I have to set goals for
efficiency.
But right? I tell you, once it hits the fan, man, you'll be in paradise. If you're off grid and it hits the fan, you're so much better off. And that's something I think that, you know, we all have to live with. At least I know I have to live with, because we compromise our actions now of not living in the world do compromise our lifestyle right now. I mean, people, I know I'm estranged. I wouldn't say estranged, but exactly. But I'm looked at as if I'm strange for not participating in, you know, in worldly things. I'm like, no, thanks, not interested.
Yeah.
And you know, and I think it does affect relationships, and it affects life. But hey, I'm willing to make those sacrifices, air quotes sacrifices, so that I live now like, you know, so I can live like nobody else. You know, live now like no one else, so later I can live like nobody else. You know, and that's can be said in a lot of different aspects. You know, penny pinching, whatever, saving now so you can live a better retirement, whatever. But I got to sacrifice now for living better later.
I remember what I was going to talk about earlier, and it was responsibility. You know, if we can take upon ourselves the opportunity to be responsible for something, someone, or just specifically even just for ourselves, be responsible, and then hold ourselves accountable to that responsibility. That's what builds character. That's what builds integrity. And human beings thrive in character building environments. If you're lazy and you don't have any responsibilities at all, you're literally gonna waste away into nothing. And then what did you do or accomplish? Nothing. Yeah. Human beings have a design for progress and progression, and you take upon yourself a responsibility, you hold yourself accountable to it. And whether we call it a goal or a responsibility, to me, it's the same kind of a thing, where you're going to have a goal, you have a responsibility, you're going to stay accountable to it, you're going to work towards the accomplishment of it, you're going to have a valuable thing that a meaningful thing that you're working for in your life, and then you're going to be able to accomplish it over to, however, you know, the more focused you are, the faster you accomplish it. The less focused you are, the slower it is to accomplish. And some goals you should be laser focused on to get them out of the way quick. And some goals are going to be more long-term goals. Like, for example, if I have a goal to get my son to college when he's 3, that's a 17-year goal. You know, we have time to plan for those things and have those things in mindsets. But, you know, I love certain countries, certain societies in the world, for example, have They have a 1 year plan, a 5 year, a 10 year, and some of them have 100-year plans. And I know like China has a 500-year plan. So is that too far out? I don't think so. What is the plan for you? What is the plan for your kids and grandkids? Do you have a plan for your grandchildren? If you're in your 30s, I don't have grandchildren yet, but I have things in mind that I would like to have for their lifestyle to be, and value systems that I'd like to have in place. And so those are some things I think it's important to take responsibility and be responsible for something, and then move forward in the accomplishment of something meaningful and valuable.
Yeah, I think one last comment for me on the same lines, Paris, is as you, like you say, as you live that responsibility and you step up and you achieve that goal, you're just moving up. You're living like we call it, a higher law. You're learning to live more. I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain this. It's kind of like when you start prepping, right? You start very simply, and then eventually you want to get off grid. You want to get the homestead. You want to be, in the country. It's an evolution, I guess. If I use that word crudely, it's kind of a crude use of it. But we're becoming, I think, better people, living higher laws, becoming more spiritual. We're growing all around. I don't know how else to better explain that. It's so that everyone understands it.
Yeah. And I think Backroads Nomadlander also brings up a good point. Off grid is different from being remote, right? I want to be off grid, but not remote. Ideally, my vacation spot would be both.
Right.
Right. I would love to have a cabin that's both, but I want to be independent, right? I want to be self-reliant. And so if you're listening to this podcast and you're brand new at this, you're like, okay, you guys have been all over the place today. Where do I start? Go back to the emergency rule of 3. Set your goals around what is the most important thing for you, right? Shelter first, then water, then food, right? And what's more important than the gear is the knowledge. Do I know how to build a fire? That's shelter. Do I then know what kind of fabrics are best to have on hand? What types of blankets? What types of, like, wool blankets, obviously, right? Or if you can get alpaca, get alpaca. That's my favorite. But look at all of your different options and say, okay, what makes the most sense? And what is the most important to my emergency preparedness first? Then once you have the basics and you've done your 90-day home store, then expand it. But start simple. Yeah. And Utah Mike, don't forget sanitation. Sanitation has to be in there. That's part of, like, sanitation and first aid to me go hand in hand. And I think, and that's more priority than getting your food. Right. You can go a few meals. Everyone can stand a few meals, but if you have a life-threatening situation, medically needs treatment, that's important. Right.
Safety right there too. So
safety.
That's what I usually put at number 4.
And if you don't have sanitation tools, you're going to have medical problems later. So make sure you have those sanitation tools. But I think that for those who are brand new, that's kind of where to start. Start with the basics. We've got other podcasts that cover that. We've got some videos that cover that, but get in our Facebook group because we cover that a ton in there as well.
Awesome. So just real fast before we sign off. So at Prepper Talk Radio, we want to be able to bring you more valuable content. We want to be able to do some gear reviews, more videos on our YouTube channel, and that might bleed into even dropping a few of those gear reviews into podcasts so that we have a little bit of a extra podcast here and there. Also, one of our goals is this year is inside the podcast where the 3 of us, and then even outside the podcast, where maybe individually we grab somebody on a day that they can do it and we interview them and we go through get into some details where the whole thing is about them and about what they have to offer and what they're bringing to the marketplace. We have some people lined up for that I think are really good. And I think that, you're going to enjoy some of the content we're going to start bringing to you guys in 2023. So gear reviews, more detailed interviews with different individuals on different topics. So we'd love to hear some of the things that you want us to review. What gear would you like for us to review? Put it on the comments, put it in our Facebook group. What experts, what subject matter experts would you like to hear from in particular areas? We can do a pretty good cursory view of almost everything with what we know, but wouldn't it be fun to bring in a subject matter expert who's got a focus on a certain area and a certain category and just really dive deep into it? Whether I interview him, Scott, or Shane interviews him, or maybe 2 or 3 of us. Sometimes we're going to have people on the podcast too interviewing, but I think addition to the podcast, the regular traditional podcast, the 3 of us just going for it, we're going to have some of these additional things brought into play. So those are some of the things we wanted to share with you. We'd love to hear more about what you guys want to hear about and what you guys want to know about. If you like what we pick and what we're choosing, that's great. And we'll keep doing it, and we'll always have a topic or 2 to talk about every time. But if we get something cool that you want to learn or want to know more about, then we'd love to really focus in on providing the value for you guys. So thank you again for listening. Thanks for watching. If you're on YouTube, if you're on the replay, put it in the comments. If you're watching live, thank you for being here. Thank you for adding to the conversation. Thank you for your comments, your questions. We're just really excited to have this opportunity to share some of the things that we know and be a voice for preparedness and self-reliance. So remember that whatever you do, have your walk with God, have your walk with your family be the most important, and then your walk with your country last. Always stay ready-minded, always be prepared, and be thinking about ways that you can be more self-reliant in your life. And until the next time, we'll see you. Actually, and I can say we'll see you next year.
See you guys. Thanks.